Now, when you go to, or maybe those who are coming to the lab, or even those who have now installed the system, you know that once you install the system, there should be a shortcut of the system on your desktop. You would normally right-click on the icon. Now, so in order for you now to create the company, you have that document available where you have the information that needs to be captured. So on the first line of icons, that is what we call the menu bar, where you find file, edit, process, and so on. And then where you have these icons for showing what they represent, that's now where we have the toolbar. So in this case, we are going to use the menu bar, and then we go to file. Now, when you go to file, there's options either to go to open once you have already a company available, already created, or else you go to new, because for now, we don't have any company. So we are going to file and then we go to new. Now, normally it will always say that create a company on the C drive. Now on the C drive, it will just mean normally that the C drive is the hard drive of your computer. And then normally if you go to file new, you are already on the C drive. So that once you go to file new, you're already on the C drive. Yeah, it's already on the C drive. So you only need to start capturing the company name. Now, make sure that the company name, here it says company name, you are given the name of this company, Glad Home. Now, whenever you are creating a company, if it's for practice or for assessment, you will have to create it using the company name that belongs to that company. But if it's for assessment, afterwards, you need to insert your student number so that your student number is the one appearing on your reports and not the company name. The company name that you have created is not that much important when it comes to marking assessments. I will show you where that setting should be done at all times. So right now, at the first time here, when you're about to create the company, and then you are supposed to type in the company name, here it says Glad Home. But if you go to the system, the whole word Glad Home will not be, it will not fit in here. At the very first time here that you are creating the name of the company, it's always the short version of that name. So like now, I'll just say Glad. That's how they do it in the reward, that they will say Glad and then 2021, the short version. Maybe sometimes the company can be Pick and Pay Model Supermarket. So you'll just say type in pick and the year, because that's important as to when is that year that you are capturing. But if I go to my document, let me just see, are we doing it, 2020? Okay, so I can even say 2020 because that's the year that we are dealing with for this company. Okay. Then the next step is you need to choose the method, how to create this company on the system. Now, there's 4 methods how to create it. We will always use the first one, which is the default method, which is setup, use setup assistant. That's the method to use. These other methods, we are not going to use them in our course, but you may find that it will be used in the industry and it will not be very difficult. It will just be an option that they will instruct you to do. Please do not get carried away by choosing this one, start new company. That is a method that you should never ever choose unless you are a system expert. Not even myself that I've tried using that method, because it means then you need to know the system very well, that you create your own accounts from scratch. So that's why we are saying the method is use setup assistant, so that we are already assisted in the process of creating our company. Thereafter, you just click on create. Now, Once you click on create, you will be taken through 12 different screens because we said we are going to use an assistant to assist us to help to create this company. So we're going to have different 12 screens that is coming up here. We are now at overview. We'll move on to company information, and then we'll move on to date, period, and so on. Now, just take note that for company information screen, you are not changing anything just because we are working with an educational pack. Now, normally with an educational pack, it means that it's just for education purposes and not for the real company purposes or commercial purposes. So don't waste your time typing all this information, but you know that the company name here, it will be the full name and the address, PO box, and all that. I'm sure you know how to type in address, information. Where it says information, normally that's where you type in your email address of the company and the telephone address and so on. So normally don't waste your time typing anything at company information. Just click on next. So if I am going too fast, just maybe inform me because I might go sometimes too fast. Now, yes.
So you're saying we should leave the company information blank, everything?
Yes, because even if you type it in, it will not appear at any of our reports. I'll show you that what the system has already captured on that screen. So it will never appear anywhere. So don't waste your time typing anything here. I'll show you what I mean later.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Date format. Please choose the day sequence or the date sequence. We'll always go with day, month, year. Please choose the year format. Normally, we'll always have 4 digits. Now, what we are going through here is the settings that we see on our information document. Sometimes you will not see maybe a lot of this information just because it will be the default settings, what we have chosen in class. So when I'm going through these screens, just pay attention as to what are we selecting and then compare to what the information that we got. And as for now, sometimes you will not get this information as to say which format that you must choose. So you must always choose as default settings that we are choosing now in class, or in other words for the class company, because what we are creating now is a class company where we are going to go through to record all the transactions for the semester. You are also going to create a class company which has the same information that I'm recording for the class purposes. Whenever you're practicing or it's assessment, you create other companies and not working in the class company. I hope that is clear. Moving on.
Okay, ma'am.
Please choose the year format. Normally, it will always be 4 digits. If you don't see it, just choose 4 digits. The separator, it's always that slash. Leave it as it is, because sometimes it might be a dot. And then you see date symbol, it changes to a dot there. Else, you leave it as a slash, normally. Click on next. Period setup. So we are supposed to create, or in other words, select when our financial year starts for this company. You will click on the down arrow. Normally, you might search using the calendar going backwards, because when is our date for this financial year? This company started the 1st of November, 2019. Thank you. Or else, while you are at date, if you type it in also, it will be fine, meaning that you type in 01/11/2019. You don't want to go through the long process to search for that, for the date. Please indicate when each period ends. Normally, it should be on the last day of the month. That first option is correct, and not on the same day each month. No, no, no. It should be on the last day of each month, because some months has 28, some have 31st. So it should always end at the end of each month, because months and periods is the same thing. Next, how many periods do you want for your company? Normally, we only need 12. As you know that the financial period for companies are 12 periods. Then the system may allow an additional 13th period, but that just means that if you select 13th period, that is the first period of the next financial year. So sometimes the company in the real world, they will type in a 13th day on top, and then you must always then click here to say use last period as first period of next year. Now, in our case, for our course, normally we don't need that, because we are not going to process in 12 periods transactions. So you leave it as it is. So in other words, in this screen, you change nothing. You leave it at 12 period. And then you just click on next. Next is the chart of accounts. Now the chart of accounts, that is where the heart of the company should be selected. But we have already on the system, how many chart of accounts? Can you still remember?
24.
24. 22 chart of
22.
accounts. Okay. So we do have 22 chart of accounts here, meaning that right now we are at generating 01. It says generated chart of accounts. That just means it's a general chart of account. If you don't know what chart of account to select, you can select the general chart of account. Now down here where you can see sales, cost of sales, purchases, inventory adjustments, that is now the accounts that you find under that chart of account. If I click on the down arrow, I can see all the chart of accounts. If I select hotels, for instance, you see that the accounts changes, but then now just to refer to the industry that you have chosen. Sales was there in the generated chart of account. Now when you choose hotel, it's still sales, but then you just specify now it's rooms because of the nature of the industry that you are trading in now. Now, for our company, did you find the chart of account? Which one are we supposed to select? What do you think?
Retail.
Okay, someone is saying retail. Another one?
Sales.
Come again?
Sales.
Generic.
General chart of account. Okay. Now, I said chart of accounts stem from what the business does. Now, here they are supplying building materials. So, which means they are supplying already
Manufacturing or what?
manufacturing. You are still asking about the chart of accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's also a possible chart of account. Now, what I'm trying to illustrate here is that, or explain is that when you are reading the information, what the company is trading in, it helps you that are they going to manufacture these products, or is it ready-made goods, or is it a hotel, or it depends on what are they doing. Now, in this case, they are supplying building materials, which will be used in renovating a school, a government school somewhere there. Now, so it means for them, they are not told that they manufacture these materials. They're supplying building materials. So a retail chart of account will do, because it means they have already made goods which they supply to that school. So then that will mean that the chart of account is retail and not a manufacturer or a construction, because they're not the ones going to construct maybe some of these classrooms, renovation, and so on. So that is where you get to select the correct chart of account based on the information given. In this case, retail. 03, retail. Moving on to the cash book / bank accounts. Now, from the information given also, you will see that how many bank accounts does the company have. That are also the same thing as how many cash books that they will keep. Normally, we have the main cash book, which is the main current account or check account, and then the petty cash. Now, the petty cash, as you know, it's just where the company will pay their small expenses from. Sometimes they do also have what we call the cash account, meaning that they do also collect cash, and then they also keep large amounts of cash. Like I think NUST will be in that category, because if they collect cash at the cashier, they do handle a large number of cash, so they might also have to handle a cash book account, and then also they handle the current account at the bank, and then they also handle a petty cash account. So normally a business would have 3 cash books. But now what we normally do is that we go through first creating 2 cash books, and then I will show you how to create or add a 3rd cash book. I will leave it out for now to add the cash book, because normally the companies could open only 1 account while they are trading. Then they also open up another bank account. So that means that adding another cash book. So that's why at the beginning now, we'll first go through how to create the 2 cash book automatically when creating the company. Then later, we'll go through how to add an additional cash book or a bank account. So you type in the number of cash book to be created, 2, and then you click on enter on your keyboard so that the 2 records open up. But while you're going to do, if you're going to do your assessments, you can already create 3 cash books. Don't go the long way of adding an extra cash book once. Now you might need it. No. When you're going to create your assessments, you can already create 3 cash books. The main current account, the petty cash, and the cash account. All those are cash books. Now, the first cash book normally is always that current account where most transactions will go through. That's at the bank that the company have created that account. In this case, if we go to our information, they bank with F&B. So our cash book that we'll also create, we'll just give it the name that it's from F&B, because they might also open up another check account at Bank Windhoek. So then it means it's another cash book. Then if you have to move on to the next line, you can just use your mouse or enter key on the keyboard. I'm using my mouse just to click on the account name. Or else you can use the arrow on your keyboard also. The up arrow or the down arrow. Then this one is just the petty cash. So all these are cash books. Then next, inventory price list. Now that just means that the company, it depends on what they are going to trade in, and then they will create various price lists as according to their customers. Maybe they have cash and credit customers whose price is different. Then they can list the names of the prices there. But normally it depends on the information given. Like for this one, we only have 1 price, because if you come down here at our inventory items, we're just told that all inventory items are sold at a markup of 20%. So it means that we only have one selling price. Sometimes you will have a cash selling price and a credit selling price. Or else you will have a price for, maybe if you are selling books, for instance, for students, staff members, universities and schools, different price lists. If there are different selling price or prices, then you list all your prices here. Maybe for schools, staff members, institutions, and so on. But in this case, for our company for now, mostly also for this course, we only have the same one price list. So you can give it a name for it, or you can leave it as it is, but normally I would like you to give it a name, maybe a retail. Just to say that, just so that it's different and not just without the description. If, for instance, you had a cash and credit, so you will call those price lists cash and then credit, because then they are different. Those who buy on credit and then those who buy on cash basis will not have the same price. So you need to give them different names. Normally you specify which one is most commonly used. If you sell mostly on cash basis, so it means your cash price will be most commonly used. If you sell mostly on credit basis, then it means you select credit as the one which is mostly used. But for this one, for this exercise or this class company, we don't have all these other prices. So I'll just go back to my first one and say retail. And then this one, let me just tail. This one I can leave it credit, or maybe let me just leave it as it was, price list, because we won't use it. Number 2, as it was. So in other words, here, when you come to inventory price list, you just change the first line and then you just type in retail or manufacturer. You just give it a name based on the industry that you are trading in, because it's only one, it's the same price list. Now, moving on, it says default terms. Now, default terms, it just means that it specifies how long do you allow your customers to pay you. Now, this comes from the fact that normally you have credit customers, so it means you are allowing them to buy on credit basis. Then you expect to collect later. So the method of default terms here will be months. Normally it will be months. If I go to my document, let me see if it's specified. If it's not specified, then that's the most common method. Here, it just says the processing method balance forward, that's something else. And the terms, I cannot see any terms here. That will mean that if I go further on the document, the moment that I see that opening balances, and then we have accounts receivables. Accounts receivable. Yeah, these are another outstanding amounts from the accounts receivable. So it means we are selling on credit basis. And then it means that, and I'm sure also at the beginning here, it's not specifying how we are selling our goods. Normally also it will tell you that we are selling on credit and cash basis. The moment that you see that they're selling on credit basis, and then you see that there's outstanding amounts from accounts receivables, then the method, no doubt, it should be month-based and not day-based, because you don't allow credit just for a few days. You normally allow credit for months, especially 1 month credit. So you select, let me just go back again. If I go to defaults, you select period. Once you select period, it will come to whether now you specify to say current, 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, or 120 days. Normally, in the trading world, it will only be 30 days. You allow credit 30 days. Now, here where it says current, if you say month-based, and then there's an option for current. So that just says that if you take an invoice, if you issue an invoice on credit, let's say today on the 24th, and your terms are current, it means that by 31st August, that invoice should be paid. Normally in the real world, that will not work like that. A customer needs 30 days to pay the invoice. So if they take out the invoice today, 24 August, they're supposed to pay only 30th September. So that's how the 30 days works. Okay, moving on. Now here, customer defaults. Now here we're just selecting as to, and this method is normally specified to say balance forward. We go to the information document. Processing method, balance forward. So if you don't see all these selections that you're doing now, always choose those ones when you're doing your assessments. Balance forward or open items is two methods. So normally we'll go to the balance forward. Now the difference, normally also this, you can read also the difference once you're going to create the company. It just means that when you're collecting your cash or from your accounts receivable, balance forward just means that you just allocate, you collect your receipts from your accounts receivable, and the system will do the allocation or the etching automatically, meaning that to allocate the payments against all outstanding invoices. Now, open items normally is the one preferred in the industry, just because it allows you, the individual, which is not the bookkeeper or the financial accountant, to allocate the payment received against the outstanding invoices on the system. And I think that is a much better option, because sometimes, customers, they like paying the newest invoice and forgetting about the oldest invoice. So you yourself need to take control and inform the customers that, no, what about the old invoices that were already taken, is not yet paid? So normally in the industry, they would like to have the open item where they match the payments themselves. But for our course, we'll allow the system to do it. So we'll always choose balance forward. Now, the last setting is now the document printing. It means that here we need to select how are we going to print our reports, in what format. Now, normally in the real world, it will be pre-printed single sheets. What does that pre-printed means? What does it mean? What do you think?
Already printed.
What is already printed on that document? What is Come again?
It might have a logo that is already.
Yes, you're correct. So in other words, normally the companies print on letterheads. Letterheads means they have already their business address and logos already. And then you just insert that paper at the printer, and then you start printing the invoices and statements and so on to your clients. But for our course, we don't have that. So we need to change this setting to plain single sheet. Right now it says pre-printed single sheet. We need to change to plain single sheet, because if you go to this document, printing says what? Plain paper or plain sheet is the same thing. In order for you to do that setting, you need to click once at where it says paper style assistance. You just click once, normal click. Please select or please choose the type of paper to print on. For us, it will be a plain paper. And you see, it's already the first option. So it's already a default setting or what we call a default selection. So you don't change anything. It's already the one option that you need. You click on next. Next setting says we are still now setting up the paper. How we'll print. It says, please indicate whether the paper you are printing on is single sheet or connected, or in other words, continuous sheets. We will always only print on a single sheet because we don't have that continuous paper. You know, when you go to some of these shops, the invoices are running or they are rolling on a piece of, on a continuous paper where they normally tear it off and so on. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Which company was that?
Doctor's office.
Okay.
Doctor's
yes.
office, ma'am.
Good. So they are using continuous paper, but we, for the course, will use single sheet. So you see that when we came to the sheet selection, it was already also single sheet. So normally there's no selection that we are doing extra. The system has already done that for us, what we need. So we just click on next. If we click on next, it says that you are about to change your document setup to plain single sheet. You should always say that. And then you click on finish. So now the setting changed to plain single sheet. I hope you will get that part also correct. Then you may click on next. We are at the last screen. It says Pastel now has all the information it needs to create your company. If you were just maybe practicing going through the settings, you can click on cancel. But if you also forget that, oh, maybe there's one setting that I've not done correctly, maybe the dates, my financial year is not correct, or my cash books are not added correctly, you can still go where? On which option?
I think back.
Yes. So you can go back as far as where you would need to have changed anything that you see that was not correct. Mostly importantly, the chart of account, because that's the heart of the company. Once it's wrong, you can't change it. You need to continue with that wrong chart of account until you're done, because sometimes you might only realize that towards the end of the assessment. So you cannot change it, isn't it? So the chart of account should always be correct at all times, because you will be marked on accounts that relates to the information given. So you might go back and change everything, whatever you want to change. Period based, we had to select what here? 30 days. Next. Here we had to select balance forward. The paper style, the paper printing style is still correct, so I don't have to change anything. Then I click on next. Now, if you are about to create the company and you have everything correct, you click on process. So that's what we need, because we are now about to create our company. Click on process. Normally with systems, you should be patient and wait, especially the ones who will be coming to the lab. Sometimes those systems, because the thing is, with IT, they have connected each and every PC, I think, to a central server. And that's why you are able to log in with all your details wherever you find yourself at NUST PCs. So always be patient, that it sometimes takes a while for the information to be processed. So don't be in a rush. just wait. It's better to wait than to trouble the system, because otherwise it will also just be confused. So that everything is now done and processed, you click on finish. Once you click on finish, the next thing that is always needed for a company is the password. You create your password. So make sure that you are going to remember your passwords yourself, especially when it comes to the assessments, because if you forget it and the system shutdowns, you are all on your own, because I will not remember or I will not know what was your password. So it's always important that you save your password somewhere where you will remember them. Now, where it says user name, you can leave it as you are user 0, because otherwise if you start changing it will just create other problems. Now, with email address, they normally want, for this new version, you would need to type in your email address, because you can leave it out, but I think it's better for you to type it in, because sometimes I've never used it because we are using an educational pack. They might assist you if you forget your password, if you send an email, but that will not, it will take time. They will not reply as soon as possible. Maybe especially when you're doing your assessments. So don't rely on that. But what you normally can do is to provide a correct email address at least, in case maybe you might need to request it via email from the system administrators who will reset your passwords. But as I said, write it down, because this is just for educational pack. Normally, that feature is very important for the commercial packs, because for the commercial pack, it's really company information that needs to be correct and always. So they might use that feature to request new passwords and so on, because changing employees is so important. But for the course, just try to write down your password somewhere, and then you do insert your email address also correctly, in case maybe we might use that feature. But normally, just remember your password. And then those security questions, you come up with them as just for formality. Yes?
How long should they?
Now, in the real world, where it is really a business password, it will have to have those characters, as they say, numbers, letters, and special characters. 20 characters. How long? That's how it should be. But for our class companies and so on, for this course, which is educational pack that we are using, even 1 to even 3 digits or whatever, it doesn't, unless it says that it must be longer than that. But like for now, I normally just use 5 characters and it accepts. So the longer it becomes, the longer it might also be difficult for you to remember the password. So it's all up to you to see how is it possible for you to remember your password. So there isn't much specification, because with 5 digits or items, it goes through.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you have created your company, and this toolbar and the menu bar, they are all active now, because now you have a company created. And then if you go to here, which says educational number Sage Pastel, my company name is appearing there. But that company name which is appearing there, it will not appear anywhere, not even on the reports. We need to do another setting whereby if you insert that name, it will now appear on the reports. So that is where it is important that you need to pay attention. Normally when it comes to the assessments, where your student number needs to be inserted. Because I told you that when you are creating your companies, even though for class purpose or for practice purposes or for assessment purposes, create the name as according to that document that you are given. Thereafter, you insert your student number later. So don't always create at the beginning, creating your company with your student number. I think that's just an advice, or much better, because sometimes you end up having a student number which is maybe too long, that it won't fit at that short name version of your company, and then you end up stuck with not being able to continue. So my advice is that create the company with another name, maybe even your first name or the name of that company. But if it's for assessment, you need to go and add your student number where it belongs so that it appears on the reports. Now, before we move on, is there any questions of what we have done so far? Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I have a question. Like, saying whether it's the create company, actually the first option. Like, do you like put your student number there? And then I think there was also another part where there was like company name, postal address, and information. But there, do you like put the original company name, or do you still put your student number there?
Not yet. I will show you where to insert your student number. Because in some of the assessments that you will see, it might say company name, student number already here. Now, that is where I'm explaining to you to say that whenever you're about to create a company, thus far, do not insert your student number. It's not necessary because it won't even appear anywhere else. I'm about to show you now where to insert your student number for assessment purposes, because you only need your student number when it's an assessment. If it's a class company or whatever, we don't even need your student number. So far, your student number was not necessary. You know, when we went to file and then went to new, here, never type in your student number here. No, it's not needed. Type in the name of the company, as I said. Maybe like now I said Glad 2020 or your first name. It doesn't matter here because it won't appear anywhere. I told you. At anywhere of your reports, it won't appear anywhere. And then the company information also, that blank sheet that I said leave it out. It won't appear anything. I'll show you what will appear on the reports if it had to be a commercial pack. So don't type in as what we have done so far. That's what you do. Now we need to move on to what we call the auto setup settings, which it just means that once you have created your company, you're doing some settings. Right now, when you are now done creating it, you need to do what we call additional settings or auto setup settings that we find at the menu bar under setup. As I told you, these are the menu bar and the icons is the toolbar, and this white field which is open here, we call this the Explorer. So the Explorer is also another way how to navigate through the system. Navigate just means moving through the system. Like now, I'm using my menu bar to find what I wanted to do, like when I created the company. And I will also use the menu bar now to do the auto setup. If we progress, I might use now the icons here, or I might use the Explorer. I will show you when to use the Explorer. So we are about to do what we call now auto setup settings. And this Word document, MS Word document that I've loaded, it also has the screenshots. So we are now at this screenshot. It also has the screenshots of your auto setup. Now, normally this one is just when you are done closing the system. I will also show you how to close the system. Here are the auto setup settings screens, which are additional settings. Are you able to see that document?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is just additional information that you can use the screens with the recordings and see what you need to change at which screens. So normally at each screen, you will write down the name of, in other words, when you're doing your own notes now, because also from the recording, you can also now prepare your own class notes. You need to write down the name of the screens that you will be getting, and then you just specify what you will be changing at those screens. So let's start with those screens. I think someone needs to mute their mic. Okay, you click on setup. Now, since you are doing this for the very first time, you click on auto setup. But if you are doing it, maybe you have done all your auto setup already. Now you only want to change one item, maybe the text, then you only come to that screen. But auto setup just means that it is these screens starting from company parameters that it is taking you in sequence so that you insert or change whatever you need to change at each screen. So I'll click on setup and then click on auto setup. Now, setup settings are regarded as major settings, meaning that just like in the retail shops, that sometimes you hear the cashier calling for what?
Override.
Exactly, and they like that word. Override. So at these additional settings, it is only given to supervisors, someone who has superior rights to do the changes, because it is regarded as major changes for that specific company. As we are all supervisors, so we are able to change that. So normally it will require a password. So remember your password. The first screen is what we call setup company parameters. So now you see that whenever you are finding challenges, maybe with the auto setup, you need, when you're doing your email, maybe consultation or question, you write down that when I'm doing my auto setup, at which screen I could not do whatever. So when you're consulting, make sure that you have more information so that I do understand where you are struggling. Here we are. Now this auto setup, this company parameter screen, it has tabs. So we will look at each tabs, what do we change at each tab. Right now we are at company tab, then we'll move on to settings tabs, and then format tab. Going back to the company tab, that is what I was saying here. Can you see this? Company details, the name, the system has already given the company name. Can you see that? So why it was not necessary for you to type in the name, because it won't even appear anyway. The address is already down, written down. Information is already given because we are using an educational pack. Even though you see the information on the document which you are provided here, maybe there's addresses and all that, just do not type it in, you are wasting your time. But for assessment purposes, those information should be included at times, because some of these assessments should be moderated, and then the moderator will also need to have more information, because we are simulating what the real world does. Normally, a company will have addresses and postal address and email address. Once you see those ones, you just read about them, but when you come to capturing, you ignore them because you know that it's an educational pack and it will not appear anywhere else. Here it says company name. Yes.
Meaning for, like, is it for test? We must fill in those stuff. Huh?
No. I'm saying for test, do not type in anything for company name, for company information. So you must fill in which stuff now, because if you're saying which stuff? Is it now the address and so on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now as I said, with the address and so on, I say that normally, yes, for assessment. Normally now when I'm emphasizing items, normally it's for assessments, because for practicing you won't really take into account all that. But I'm saying for assessment purposes, you are given information of the company, and then there's email address, telephone address, contact persons, what. When you come to doing it, you leave them out. when you're creating a company, you know, with that screen where it was company information, you leave it out because it won't appear anywhere. Because as you can see, SM has already the address and everything already, because it's an educational pack and not a commercial pack. Now, here at company, which is company name, not a trading name. Trading name here, please leave it out as it is. Normally, your student number needs to be inserted here. Educational number Sage Pastel. That is where you need to type in your student number if it's an assessment. So let me just do what you would do if it's an assessment, and then you need your student number to be appearing on your reports. You will click which is company name, educational number. You will just click at that box. It will be highlighted. While it's highlighted like this, you hold down 3 keys on your keyboard, the Control and the Shift and the T. A pop-up window will come in, which allows you now to insert your student number. If you don't insert your student number here, it will not appear anywhere. If I click on OK, now it is appearing here. It says educational number and the student number. So here, that is where you type in your full student number. If it's for assessment, please, only. Your test 1 or test 2 or your final assessment. If you're practicing, do not insert your student number there, because it will create problems that when you start creating a lot of companies at the same PC, like for those who have your own laptop, if you have done your first test and then you have created your student number already, in other words, if you insert your student number here, it will not have an impact whether you insert it again for another company. But if you create a company with a student number at the beginning where you had to type in the name, if you type a student number and then you create another one, it will not allow you. It will say that this company exists. So that's why I'm saying normally when you're creating it the first time, the name must be anything else. And then you only insert your student number here. If you insert your student number here, you can insert it at every company that you are creating for assessments. I hope that part is clear. If not, maybe you may ask.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question. Like
yes.
After what Control Shift and T, and then did something also pop up the educational number Sage Pastel. Do I enter my number there like next stage Sage Pastel, or do I like remove it and then put in the student number?
You remove that Sage and then you type in your student number. Okay. If I do it again, Control Shift T, it comes up. You see, yeah, with the student number. So if it had that Sage, or you want to change, you first remove it, workspace, and then you type the correct item that you want to type. Then it appears there. That is the very most important setting. And that's the only thing that you change. This contact name and telephone address and so on, you leave it out, please, because it's just wasting your time. You go to settings. Normally, document numbers. Who is just entering the chat now? Now, with settings tab, you select here, it says document numbers. You select one set of number for this company. That's the setting that you do for now. Later, we'll do this setting here, which says cash book transfer account. Once we are going to do the cash book processing, we'll do a setting here. For now, we'll leave it out. Then formats. Now with formats, number currency, currency symbol, sorry, it must be.
And explain it.
Come again?
Can you please go back to settings and explain which function we use again?
Okay, settings, document numbers, you select one set of number for this company and not separate, because normally it will be a separate set of number for this company. But we should always then select one set of numbers for this company. That's the setting that we have done there only.
Thank you.
Then, okay, thank you. Then we go to formats. With formats, currency sample. I had to insert this $N, maybe $sign. You do need to insert it also. Then once you're done, normally please use you don't click on OK here. You use the button on your right top corner. Next, you click on next. It will say, do you want to save the changes? You say yes. Once you say yes, you are taken to the next screen. The next screen, set up financial categories. Now, in the real world, the system has selected these names for you. You change them as what you like them to be called. Like now it says fixed assets. You know that nowadays it should be non-current assets. So that is where in the real world they change these categories. But for our class purpose, don't waste your time changing this. It's fine the way it is, because as long as we understand the categories that the accounts are allocated to, it's fine for us. So you leave out no settings at set up financial categories. Next. Report writer category also, nothing that you change because the system knows already which accounts are linked to which report. So you continue. Next. Now, set up entry types. Set up entry types. Here we have entry. You know, when you do your manual accounting, you talk about books of original entry. That is what is the same thing here on the system. Set up entry types. The cash books that we have created is 2 cash books, which has a payment and a receipt screen, and then general journal, payroll journal, and depreciation journal, and so on. For this course, we will only use cash books and general journal, because from the manual accounting, you know that if, in other words, you can use your cash book and then any other transactions can be recorded using the general journal. So that is the same thing that we'll be doing here for the course. We need to know how to record in the cash books and the general journal only. So that is where, when we come to the settings here, account access, we normally would like to change this account access to any account. That is very important, because we are saying that right now, the system said that if you are in your cash book payments, you will access your general ledger accounts and suppliers, because you normally pay your accounts receivable, which are your suppliers, and your expenses that you find under your general ledger. With your receipts, normally you will have your accounts receivables, customers, and any income received by general ledger accounts. So, but when you're doing now the general journal, here it says general ledger accounts only, but you want to access all the accounts, even customer accounts and also supplier accounts. So it means you end up for all these, the cash books and the general journal, you need to change the setting here to say access any account. It depends on what you want to process at that time. So you do that setting to click on the column at that first line, then you click on the down arrow. You scroll up. You need to scroll up to find the option which says any account. That's what you do for the next cash book receipt screen. You click on that column. On the down arrow, you scroll up and then you select any account. That's what you do also for this other cash book. When you come to line number 5, general journal, do the same, because here it only allows you to access general ledger accounts, but you also want to access customer account or supplier accounts. So you click on that, then you will click on a box, and then on that, it will allow you to select the option by clicking on the down arrow and select any account. So that is what you change for the cash book and the general journal. That's all. These other ticks, leave them as they are. Please do not do anything. This contra and detail column, it just means that you are able to see the other account. The other account means the other leg, because you know that when you're processing in accounting, you have a debit and a credit leg. So a payment leg will have a corresponding debit entry leg. So where at the cash books it is not ticked, so you leave it as it is. At the general it is ticked, you leave it as it is. It just has to see to do with how will you access your transactions later in your general. So leave out the setting as it is. It's correct. So what you only change is your account access here. Then to move on to the next screen to save the changes, you click on next on top. You want to save the changes because the system is always also communicating with you. If you see this blue icon with a question mark, normally that's not an error message. So it's just a warning or an information message. You read the message, please always read the messages. Make sure that you understand what the message says before you do the selection of the option, whether to say yes or no. Now in this case, I want to save the changes, yes. Period setup, you change nothing. Because at the beginning, you had to have the financial period dates correct. If you find it to be wrong, as I said, do not change it here now. Leave it out. And you will only lose a mark for maybe if they are giving a mark for a correct period, because what is wrong is just your system and not the information on the document. Because on the document, you will capture transactions correctly as according to maybe the first period or second period. So when you find yourself that you have got a wrong financial period, continue with it, because you had to make sure at the beginning whether it's correct or not. But if you could not pick it up and it's wrong, don't try to change here now. Periods that start starting to change, do not do it, because it will sometimes it will not even go through. It was somewhere here you will get stuck. I tried and then I got stuck somewhere at the 7th month. Now you have changed halfway, the other part is not changed. So I'm advising you not to change anything at periods. Just continue. Another setup is the text setup. Now text setup, and then it says general settings. So now here we are talking about the VAT settings. Now, if we come to this document, tax processing for customer and suppliers, it says 15%. Assume all amounts are exclusive unless otherwise stated. So it means that when we are going to capture our transactions for customer supplier documents, we will have to use the 15% VAT, and then we assume that all our amounts are exclusive, meaning that if you come to this table where we have our inventory, so whenever you see an amount like this, it's VAT exclusive, so that you calculate your selling cost, for instance, and then the system will add the VAT on its own. So all amounts are exclusive here. So that's the setting that you do on the system. Here, default entry method. Unless otherwise told, normally we would like to work with exclusive figures, because if you start working with inclusive figures, then you need to work out what was the VAT and all that. So normally it's best that you work with exclusive figures, and then the system will add the VAT on its own. But it depends also on the requirement what it says, but normally it says exclusive. But if it says inclusive, then you need to leave it as it is. But if it's now, like in this case, exclusive, then you say exclusive. And then for the 15% VAT, it's already selected because the system that you have installed has already selected that for 15% VAT. And then if you go to percentage here, you have all the tax already on the system. And here, like for the first one, it says VAT standard rate 14%. 14% will just mean that for South Africa, but for Namibia, it's also now added the 15%, line number 15, VAT rate 15%. So all this is now already incorporated. And the system now knows that if you also want 15%, it will capture that. I will show you where it will pick up on that. So in other words, let me just go back. Company parameters, if you have to do the settings for the text, general settings, you only change here, which says default entry method, you select exclusive. For the percentages, you change nothing, it's already done. Now, if I go back to parameters, tax system, that says normal VAT. Now, if the information says that the company do not use tax, you go on this down arrow and then you select do not use tax, meaning that the company or the vendor is not registered for VAT. But in this case, we are told that the business Glad Home was established a year ago and it is a VAT registered vendor. So it is registered for VAT, and then it means you leave it as it is, normal tax VAT, and then you just change exclusive there and nothing else. If you click on next, you want to save the changes? Yes. Now, moving on with the settings, it says setup tax manager. Now, this is where you would, in the reward, they will link this company to the categories, the VAT categories, whether category A or B or C. But we are not doing that because in the reward, they will already have done that for you. So for our course, we are not doing it because we are not going to report anything on VAT. So we leave out where it says setup tax manager. Leave out just means you continue with your settings. Now we have this other European Union setup also. We don't change anything, but if you click on next, it will say, do you want to save the changes? I normally say no, because I've not changed anything because we are not going to use it. Next setting, setup customer control, we change nothing. Because this just means it's settings for all the customers, but you can still set change the settings for individual customers if you want to change anything. So here you do nothing, no settings, you just go to next. With documents, here also it says for customers, you are able to process quotations, sales order, and invoice, and so on. Now, if we go to our document here, now here it says supplier processing, or in other words, processing, no GRN, no purchase orders, no sales orders, and also no quotations, meaning that we are not going to process those documents. We are only going to process for customers, an invoice, and a credit note for the cost. Because in the real world, they will already show you, because it's the same document setup. If you have to issue a quotation and then you have to issue an invoice, normally it's just the same document setup. So we don't need to go the extra mile to show you how to do a quotation and then again a sales order and then again an invoice. As long as you understand an invoice setting, a quotation and sales order will be very easy because it's just the same thing. But in the real world, they do want those quotations because you know that the customers first ask for a quotation before they accept. But for the class purpose, we will just assume that that part is already done and we are going to start issuing invoices and then we issue credit notes if the customer return their items. So which means at this setup, we don't do anything for customers. Which says customer setup customer documents. It's just for noting and no settings to be done here. Then you click on next. For setup supplier control, the most important setting now, you see that here VAT default, it has already picked up on the 15%. So you don't have to change anything. The system will know which VAT that you're using because of the version that we have installed on our system. Now, the most important setting that you need to do where it says setup supplier control, good receive notes, because here it says no GRN. Here, this GRN stands for what? What do you think?
Good received.
Thank you. Now, no good received note, it means as it is on the system, it says mandatory. Mandatory just means that we need to use it. So we need to do a setting to remove that mandatory setting, and then we say never. Good receive note, always select never, so that you are able to continue issuing an invoice without first having to issue a good receive note. So for our course, that's the most important setting. Good receive notes, never, you select never. Next, do you want to save the changes? You say yes. It takes you to the documents that are able to be processed for the suppliers. Purchase order, good receive, supplier invoice. We will only start with an invoice, because we are assuming that all these steps are already done. The purchase order was sent, good receive note was already recorded, because as I said, those documents have the same setting as an invoice, but it's needed in the industry because maybe customers, the suppliers, you just place the purchase order and then you need to receive the goods, but we are not receiving any goods, so we're not going to process any good receive note. So we're only going to process a supplier invoice and a return debit. Not even a credit to supplier, only those two documents. So that's all, no settings to be done at this screen. The last screen. Now, inventory setup also, no settings, just for noting. As you can see here, the price list, the one that we have changed to retail, it pulls through here. If you want to change, you can still change it there if it's necessary, but otherwise you leave it as it is. Integration, the next step which says integration in group. Here, I'll just explain that, or you just need to take note that the system has already an integration, meaning that the inventory item is already integrated to the general ledger. Meaning once, if you issue your invoice, you are selling the items. The system, the moment that you issue an invoice, when you're selling the item, the system will automatically also update your general ledger accounts for sales and for inventory adjustments, and for cost of sales and for inventory. So that's why for our course, we are not going to process maybe supplier journals or sales journals, because once you use an invoice, all those ledger accounts are already updated because of this integration here. And we leave it like that. Sometimes in the company, they do try to deactivate this. They click there and then it means the inventory is not linked to the general ledger. But for our course, we leave it as integrated so that when we issue an invoice, all accounts related are updated already. And you don't have to come and process an inventory journal, or process a sales journal or a purchases journal. That will always also waste time. So this is just for taking note that that's why we are not processing sales day books and purchase day books, because of the integration of the system already done for us, where the inventory items are already linked to the general ledger codes. Once you issue an invoice for customer, sales will be updated. Once you issue an invoice for suppliers, purchases will be updated. So purchases, cost of sales, the same thing on the system. So you don't need to process individual day books. I hope that part is fine. Now, that's the last screen. We're done with our auto setup. And if you don't receive any message as it is now, it means that your settings were successful, or in other words, the system could understand whatever you chose was also understandable by the system, meaning that maybe where you had to insert a number, you have inserted a number and not a letter, because sometimes if you insert a letter where the system requires a number, it will be confused and it will give you a message, an error message, to say that maybe on screen number, whatever the system, there's an error, what you have made. So then you go back and then you correct at the same time, because I'm sure when it's wrong, it will not allow you to continue to the next screen because there's something wrong. So that's why I'm saying you read the messages which the system is trying to communicate with you, because it's a system and it's trying to generate what you are inserting. So the user must always also communicate with the system by reading the messages that you will be getting. Now, I see that we took more time on this one. Now, that is where, for this lecture, I will end at auto setup settings. And then in the next recorded lecture, I will go through understanding the chart of account, because if you go to the screen, I told you already that you will have these screens again, where you will go through step by step to understand the auto setup. You see that pop-up screen here? That's what we went through. We came to settings set to where we selected one set of numbers. So all these screens are already available. So that's why I won't spend much more time now again on this. You go through this, and then if there's any questions, that is where you will maybe still start sending through an email, and then I will explain further. Because as it is right now, we had to understand the chart of account. Now, understanding the chart of account will also take, maybe it might be also another hour or 30 minutes. Now, since it's a live class, that is where sometimes I told you that we will not go on for 2 hours. No one listens for 2 hours, to be honest. Or do you do listen for 2 hours?
No,
Thank you for being honest. Okay, so on the lecture, I'll stop there, and maybe let's just continue with the next few slides for a few minutes. Now, just because in each lecture, you need to reflect, what have you learned today? If I may ask, that is normally the individual question for knowing in any lecture, what have you learned today? Just one sentence or 2 sentences. Who may answer that?
How to create a company.
to create company.
Okay. So in each lecture, you need to find out what I learned today. Okay, I learned how to create a company, and then I learned also how to do auto setup settings, especially for this class. So in each class, ask yourself, what did you learn for that day? Then the summary will just mean that what was important, what was stretched out, or what was standing out to say that do this, do not do that, and all that. So what you had to take note, which is maybe important, is that when you are practicing, do not type your student number. You create it using your own name, any other name. Only when you are creating for the assessment purposes that you create a company, and then you insert your student number. So when you're practicing, do not even insert your student number if it's for practice, because you won't even use it. But if it's for assessment, that is when you will now insert your student number. Now, sometimes some students, they would like to, if it's for assessment, they also want to name the company with their student number. But it happens that at that company name screen that you saw, sometimes the student number doesn't screen. If you go to file new here, some student numbers will not fit in here. Now that is where in the past, maybe if you want to create this using your student number, and then there's one last digit not being able to be captured, you leave it out, because you know that that name that you type there is not appearing at any screen. So you leave it out if your student number is not fitting there. Then you insert it where it belongs. So those are the summary points that normally you need to take note. So only when you're creating the assessment that you need to insert your student number. Normally it will say create a company on the C drive. So don't look for the C drive. Whenever you go to file new, you're already at the C drive. So those are the most important things that we normally have to emphasize when it comes to the settings, because from experience, you find someone looking for the seed drive when you're not doing the assessment. Then you wonder why. Because sometimes the information said, create the company on the seed drive. You will find that in the assessments. In the old test question paper, say, maybe it will tell you, create a company on the seed drive. Or maybe if you go to the library where you have those old question papers, exam question papers, are they still accessible? Did you try looking at those old question papers using the library portal? Not yet.
Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes if you go through those question papers, they will tell you, create a company using your student number on the seed drive. So don't get confused. That just means that if you want, you can create your student number there, but I'm telling you that you can leave it out here. And then on the seed drive means as long as you go to File, New, you're already on the seed drive because you have installed this system on the seed drive of your laptop, or it was already done on the PC. So that's what you need to maybe take note of from this lecture. And then the method to create the company, use the setup assistant method. So that is also important. And taking note, there are 22 chart of accounts, and you must always choose the appropriate chart of accounts based on the information given. So those are the takeaway information from this lecture.